And of course, the artist George Nelson Preston. We're really grateful that you could make it here with us tonight, and we're looking forward to it. We have created this space to be really a nexus for culture and consciousness in Harlem. And so you'll get to learn more about us a little bit later. Please stick around. And everything, just so you know, everything in the gallery is for sale. If you should be interested, come and talk to myself or Caroline back there. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Ira Silverberg to introduce the program.
Thanks, Bob. Hi. Welcome to session number 2 of Altered States. The idea is consciousness, this thing we kind of aspire to or work very hard toward, opens up doors to creativity. And as someone once said, perception as well. And I got an email from Alex Galan, who is here, who represents Ryan Lee Gallery, who represents George, and I saw something about ayahuasca notebook paintings. And it was a good day. I went to see the Ailey show. It had just opened, and it was really inspiring. And I walked up to Ryan Lee Gallery, and there was this beautiful painting show of yours. And I just kind of got absorbed into the canvases. And then I got your bio, and it turned out you were, you hosted Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac in your loft in the East Village in the 50s, had Klaus Oldenburg as your neighbor at that time when New York was such a different place. So you
was my next door neighbor. I came home one day and he was on the pavement ready to ambush me. And we had 2 storefront lofts. So we had windows, like there's a store. And he says, "Look what I just did." And I saw these 2 paper mache hamburgers. I didn't think much of it at the time.
Just a hamburger. And what I gathered was that this man who spent 32 years teaching at City College, alongside my friend Frederick Tutton, which I only found out the other day, was painting the whole time, showing, not showing, traveling the world, and changed, I think, like the lives of people through your interactions, and there was an exchange of consciousness on different continents, and we'll get to this, but should we go here first, or I'm just kind of like I'm curious. The first time you entered into the space was when did you first alter your perception and go into a more expansive space?
I had always had a feeling, a desire to go somewhere, not necessarily traveling, but physically, but go somewhere. And when I was about 12 years old, I got tired of going to church with my mother. My father wasn't a church-going person. So she said, "Well, you're 12 years old. You don't want to go to church anymore." Then I went to the High School of Music and Art, and I began learning how to paint, and I wanted to take my work somewhere other than on the canvas. I wanted my work to be a threshold, a temple, an architectural temple, like the Parthenon or the Temple of Hathor. You're there, and then you went into a porch where the light is different because you're not totally outdoors. and then you go into an anteroom, and then there's a sanctuary. So, I became interested in light, but in the ambivalence of light, in that light that is transitional and transitory, and maybe is from night to morning, but maybe not, because it occurred to me that there's two kinds of space. There's the space that you can find and the space that is forever. So all that's, going into my head. And I read the Peyote cult. By Weston Labar. The Ghost Dance, I read both of those books. And by chance, there was an essayist named Seymour Krim.
Oh God, I knew Seymour Krim. He was.
Oh, you really,
Yeah, when I was like a kid starting out, he was like 100.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he got a hold of some peyote. So he and I and a couple other painters got together in my loft on 4080 East 3rd Street. And we each took 4 peyote. They're not really mushrooms. They're kind of like cactus, which are incredibly alkaline. So I can tell you that the gates to paradise are bitter. But, one of the important things that I've noticed about these entheogenic substances is that.
Can I pause and ask you to tell us the difference between an entheogen and a hallucinogen, because the terms are confusing to some?
Yeah. It's only entheogenic if the substance is in the context of taking you on a journey of altered spiritual, religious experience. If you're just taking it like kind of for tourism, then you're just taking a psychedelic or a psychotropic substance. That's all. You're just getting high. I think a couple of important things are, for one thing, you can experience geometric forms, you can experience images. And what I found interesting is that these are things that would scare the hell out of you if in your regular state of consciousness. I mean, if you saw some of these images suddenly here, you'd want to run out of the door. But in a psychotropic state, they're just kind of interesting. Like, wow, what's that? I mean, you could also push a panic button and, get afraid of it. But, I mean, these substances get you through them, and you should not take them unless you're with a specialist. And I don't mean somebody with long hair, with a long skirt and Dumbo.
It sounds like you're speaking to something.
They're over there, yeah. That's not it. I like to mention the Hunikeen in particular. Okay, yeah, Alfred.
Should we like
Yeah,
pull
yeah.
up something?
Yeah.
Let's, because some of this is right here. So,
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Where are you, Senny? What happened to him?
Oh, we're on hold. So you.
Yeah, go past that. Go past that.
Okay. So speaking of light, I mean, ambivalent
Yeah.
light. Here are two
So,
images. One, this classic painting.
Yeah,
right?
the fur traders descending the Missouri is something that I first came across when I was around 17 or so in high school. And, it impressed me that an ordinary genre painting could have religious content. I understood that it wasn't about painting saints or, anything like that. It could be just the awe of that's right. And also there's the stillness. It's like a Egyptian, statue that, it's not like that and it's not like that. It's like, it's arrested movement, but it's okay. So it's forever. It's there forever. And so the eternal, stillness of ambivalent light that is transient, that is taking you from one place to another, from one part of the day to the other. So that fascinates me. I take a lot of photographs, and I take a lot of them at dawn, early in the morning or late at night. And you're going to see an aspect of this in my, in my work. Yeah.
Now we're in the jungle.
Yeah. Sacred places. I visited a lot of sacred places. And again, they are set intentionally in places where the light is ambivalent, where it's neither day nor light. There's a Congo proverb in which a young man sees a beautiful woman in a village, and he wants to marry her. And the elders in the village tell him, okay, but you have to bring us a sheep, but don't bring it by day and don't bring it by night either. So he's lost. He goes to the elders in his village and he says, they want me to bring a sheep, but they said, don't bring it at night or day. And the elders in his village tell him, well, tell them you'll bring them the sheep, but they cannot eat it at day and they can't eat it at night either. And he goes back with that answer and they say, okay, we see you've come from a place where your people speak with the wisdom of the ancestors. Okay, so now, we are part of this ambivalent thing of from ancestors, from there to here, okay, and up. So that's another thing that's in my head.
Well, I want to quote something you told me, because it's just a more contemporary version of it. And it was that, you're going to have to tell me who said this. I think it may have been Motherwell. Basically, it was that there's, I think it was Robert Motherwell who referred to.
Oh, Motherwell.
The collective consciousness.
Every contemporary artist carries the whole history of art in his head. And every work of art that he does is a critique of that. Yeah. So, all right. Light, ambivalent light, ancestral presence, the Kalunga. For the Congo people, the Kalunga is the horizon that divides this world from the lower world. And the Kalunga is the horizontal axis of the 4 moments of the sun. And for them, the black on the right is the beginning. That's when you're born. And the apogee of your life, the part where you descend towards wisdom and age, and then when you become an ancestor. So this is another part of my thinking. When the slaves from the Congo were put in those boats, and when they went across the ocean, they would see the Kalunga disappearing. They thought the Kalunga was a place that you went to, and then that was it, and you were in the world. So this idea of waterways, because water is the big way historically that people go somewhere. It's also the paradox, the terrain of terrible dilemmas, being in those ships and experiencing that horror, and then at the same time, the sunsets, the ocean, the reflection on the water is absolutely beautiful. So the shifting landscape, you'll see that a lot in my work. Back to peyote and ayahuasca, the expansiveness, what I call the one big fat oneness of it all. Okay, and on the right is a painting that I did entitled Somewhere Between Kisama and Kisama. Kisama is a place in Angola, and there's another Kisama on the coast of Brazil. They often named places in the New World after the place where most of those slaves came from. And I think you can see what I'm talking about here with the shifting landscapes. The space is expansive, but it's closed. The horizon opens, it closes, it's aqueous, it's finite, and it's open.
Can we get to above and below, though? Because I think in
What?
above and below the horizon line, below is usually thought of in kind of Judeo-Christian mythology as
bad.
Yeah.
But for the African, it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the place of the ancestors. This is a place of renewal. It's a transition towards rebirth. Okay. So I mentioned to you before the temple, the painting as a temple. On the left is a self-portrait from 1959, when I started experimenting with this ambivalent light, with the aerial space also being architectural space, and the two of them moving in and out of each other. And then I thought of myself, as being part of that structure. And I think what happened there was, because this is after the first peyote experience, where I began to think of everything like in very isotopic terms. Because part of that journey is this opening up. And by the way, a physical thing that happens is your eyesight, your long vision improves tremendously. Here's an aside. One of the reasons why the Indians take it is because they're hunting in circumstances where they really need, to have acute vision. And so they'll powder it and then blow it into their eyes. But and the one on the right is one that I just finished about a month ago. And
in both of them, we're looking at the structure that you describe of going into the sacred space, that there's a kind of proscenium or an entryway, and then you're getting into the sanctuary, and then you're getting the other side. When we first met, you talked about getting through a painting to get to the consciousness that's on the other side of the canvas.
Okay, so I use a lot of narrative content, and it doesn't matter whether you know the story or not. There's the objective content, and there's the subjective content. The subjective content is what the painting is about. My face and my image, the red, the blue, everybody here looks at that and they can say, oh yeah, that's kind of red and that looks blue and there's white there. We all agree objectively about that. But that's the form that I'm trying to use to get to the subjective content, which is, what are you feeling about that? And am I taking you further than that image?
You said that subjectivity is arbitrary.
Okay.
So I'm kind of curious about that, because is it that in this kind of broader space, in the oneness, everything is arbitrary? In that there's no control over one's entry into a space that's a space of consciousness or transcendence. I was kind of curious about that.
Let me kind of answer it by circumventing it.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Let's go. What's the next? Speaking of structure and consciousness and creating windows and
so
levels.
in 1966, after having some interesting experiences that I don't want to talk about, I ended up in I started in a program at that time of what they called primitive and pre-Columbian art at Columbia University. But I was interested in a lot of things, and I'd heard about the great Meyer Shapiro. And so I decided to sit in on one of his lectures about medieval art. And he was talking about how he was trying to figure out where these different manuscripts came from, the different regional styles. And he started, and he said there's one thing that all these manuscripts have, but those three things are treated differently in Spain and in France and in England, so on and so on. And so those three things, like on the left, is what they call the surround. And then there's a field. I don't mean necessarily a prairie, but the formal field and the figure. But like if you look on the right, some of those dissolve the field, the figure, and the surround. And I said to myself, great, this is really affirming my ideas about the figure and the form and the architectural frame and external space and architectural space having these possibilities of total fluidity and ambivalence.
Well, it feels like the space is set up to go into. And that's what I'm hearing from you, is that the space, there may be this construct of space, but it's all about an entry point.
Yeah. Mhm. So, and then there was Velázquez. This painting fascinated me. It's the royal portrait, and this guy has the nerve to put the back of the painting that he's doing the portrait of, and it's occupying like about a 1/6 of the canvas, and then he's looking at you, kind of like oh, who's that? Like coming in. But wait a second, that's you over there. This has got to be you. I mean, I guess these are their parents who are coming in on this thing. And this guy is important. And he's got this source of light coming. This is so much more than, I don't know how the royal parents felt about this, but this painting is really not about them. He's just using this family to talk about art and about light and about space. And so this is us coming in. Here he is looking at us. Yo, you're interrupting me. I know this is your family, but it's my studio. And the architectural space, and then you have this figure who's like coming in and out of another spatial realm. And I said to myself, yeah, Velázquez anticipated me by 300 years.
Open the door. So your painting,
Yeah,
a response to Velázquez.
yeah. So I thought I would use some of his devices. Now, but remember what Motherwell said. I mean, I'm not picking my brain over this while I'm doing this, right? This is just happening, okay? This is like being a improvisational jazz musician or an athlete in a situation. You're dribbling down the court. You don't have time to start picking apart a whole bunch of stuff. You've got your sense of where people are, and you react. But
I mean, a path was laid out for you without you laying it.
Yeah, and the peyote experiences, open for me my mind to follow this kind of path.
And I think collectively, it's just what I'm hearing also is that the similarities that exist in terms of that structure or lack thereof of path are almost universal.
Yeah.
I mean, because I when you were showing us the horizon lines, I was thinking Bob and I had lunch last week with the Chief Justice of the Navajo Nation, who's working on a book on indigenous justice, which is based in the four directions, which are exactly what that chart showed us. And he was telling us that he's been traveling to Brazil, to Taiwan, and that wherever he meets indigenous people, that the form of the day, enlightenment, and law are basically the same. It's the four directions. It's the times of day.
There's a lot of shamanism in Taiwan.
Is there?
Yeah, but like speaking of the Navajo, I guess a lot of you know about the sacred spaces, the kiva, and the kiva is an emblematic structure that references above, below, and in the median circle, and it is intentionally designed to have that light, to have that light that's the ambivalent, transitory light. So these are a couple of things from 1981, and then something that I did recently. And the one on the right, I'm using myself, my portrait, as that, what I call proscenium canvas that Velázquez used, okay? because I want to have a porch. I want to have an entry into the painting, a theatrical proscenium screen that I pull aside, okay, and that you go into. I call that artist, model, and pencil of desire, because there's another thing going on there is you're an artist, you have a nude model, the beautiful female, but this is not a situation for a sexual encounter. So there's a tension between being an artist, all right, and having a totally formal approach to what is very material and very sensual. So that's the real subject, actually, right? The model, and you know, it's just the vehicle, is just the means for going there. But again, you see on the left the room there, the light on the side, Velasquez little light over there that was on the right side of the painting. And then on the left, the drawing with I'm experimenting with the arch. It's going to evoke automatically in you, when you see that, something classical, something, that has to do with a temple.
The temple. I want to go back there for a minute because it's the space in Western, in the Western spiritual space is really confined, but you have found a way both in and out of it, which I think is kind of fascinating because we all tend to be trapped, and the spiritual path to get beyond, the kind of more rigid interpretations of liturgy mean you have to kind of step through. You have to basically trample your way through the temple to get out of it. And those structures for you, you're leaving those structures. You're entering, getting what you need, and leaving. Is that kind of the metaphor there?
Well, the painting is the metaphor of that,
right?
But I think that you can have those experiences just like meeting somebody, I don't mean to embarrass her, but when I met my wife, it was like I was going to transition definitely from one awareness to the other. And then people have an aura that frames themselves, and so other sources of my work that drive me and affirm for me that I'm on the right path is these sacerdotes, these sacred people that I've met, mostly in Africa and in Brazil. There's two of my mentors, both of them being photographed in a state of altered awareness. In that particular culture, they can be female or male. Actually, most of them are female usually.
Why did we lose the divine feminine? What do you think happened? It feels like the presence of a female spirituality is kind of gone in a lot of spaces. I mean, it's being rebuilt here, but it feels like the priestess culture is...
No, over there, it doesn't have to do with, it's not a gender specific thing.
Okay.
It's just anybody who gets taken.
By the spirit.
Yeah, right.
You told me a wonderful story about a priestess who was in church.
Okay, the woman on the left, she was brought up in a Christian family. And one day, this local spirit called Topre, which is a manifestation of God that's in a spring, called her. And she went out of the church and she went over to this spring. So I'm pretty good speaker of the local language. And I understood her to describe just what I told you. But to check, to make sure, I asked my interpreter, what did she say? And he said, oh, she was in church and then she got called by the pagans. And that's not what she said. Okay.
What did you hear?
She said, "Mi wo church, I was at church, and a Topre freme, and Topre called me. And I went to the spring."
And she became the priestess of the spring?
No, that's beginning of the apprentice, where the other senior priestesses will teach her about the herbs, and it's a complicated thing, but that's the beginning. Yeah. This is from, I think, 2018. Okay, yeah, that's good. And the one on the right is done a couple of months ago. The mirror to the inland sea will take you to the island of liberation. And this is one of my favorites because I feel that I really accomplished that close space and the expansiveness of the space, the journey, the path, the serpentine figures, snakes, earth, below the earth, arboreal, the proscenium idea, which is like that floral form on the lower left, and of course, water, the horizon, the shifting kalungas. Yeah.
How many paintings in that style? I mean, how many have you done of the kind of like that particular seascape? Because I've seen, but imagine
it's frequent. That one
yeah.
that I mentioned, somewhere between Kisama and Kisama, is
Right.
like that. I mean, it looks different, but it's, you know, the same ideas. Yeah. Two of my Brazilian friends and influences. That guy on the right, Chai Kun, is my wife's favorite guy. And
There's ayahuasca.
the guy on the left is, Page is the word for shaman. Page, Sapaim Kamalu Chingu. Chingu is his tribe. And the name means son of the jaguar. They like jaguars because jaguars are terrestrial, they swim well, and they climb great, like leopards. And very often in Africa, you'll see these priests have a rug with leopard skin. I just thought you might want to know what ayahuasca, you know, looks like. It's a vine. It's a climber. Nishipai is what the Hunikin call it. Roughly translated, the cord or the rope to above. Kawa, that's actually ayahuasca is a cocktail Sometime can be 2 or even 3 plants or so. And this in the Huinikin, they mix the kawa, right? Now, the vines and the leaves are something that also comes up in my work a lot. We'll get to that in a minute. This painting on the left by Jose Badia, who is a real serious ayahuasquero. A friend of his who was with him said that Badia carries a sketchbook with him when he is under the alternate state. But when he looked at the sketchbook, there was just like scribbles. And, and he said, "What's that?" And he says, "I see the shaman turning into a black jaguar and offering me the ayahuasca," which is like, that's him in the Kalunga. He knows all about Kalungas. He fought against the South Africans, the Cubans in 1980. He was in Angola. And so
it's an example of someone doing it under or in the space under the influence.
But like I don't paint things that I've seen, okay? It's the big oneness that I'm experiencing. That's the subject. I've never, I don't recall ever painting something and I said, yeah, well, I saw this in ayahuasca. But the one big fat oneness of it all, that's the ayahuasca experience that I'm trying to convey. That painting on the right is called Two Shaman, Two Mountains, Two Journeys, because it's always a journey. You start in this state of consciousness and you go up and you come back to this state of awareness. In this painting, I took a photograph of the African priestess and shaman Chai. I made them as inserts in the work. And then I had the two of them embrace in oneness in the center. And I had the audacity to say how I introduced Nanam Kofu, Yafosia, and Shaman Shai Kim. Well, I did it with a painting, with the openness of the space, the shifting horizons. Yeah.
Can we zoom out so we can see is that possible here? So we can see what you've done? It's hard to tell from a distance, no? Okay.
What do you want me to do?
I was just, it's hard from a distance. It's hard to see what you're doing with kind of applying other images to the painting.
Yeah. Well, the vines are there, okay. This is like a really heavy narrative, and like I'm addressing the Bible and mythology. On the left, the Congo Nganga, the priest, the shaman, stays the boulder of Sisyphus. No more pulling it up and it comes down again. This is it, okay? And then Christianity, the shaman Shai descends Jacob's ladder, only to find that his own spirit is already up there. And this stuff that you see here, these are the kine that you sometimes see in ayahuasca or in peyote. They look like these isotopic diagrams, and they're interlocking, all the time.
Do you think there's a code or a language there that is transmitting a message?
Oh yeah, they have names for all of those things, but they don't look like anything what the names are. Yeah. I also got concerned with, the way the land and everything has been taken away from indigenous people. And I always wonder what they feel like when they look at this land that once was theirs and is not anymore. So I have a series of paintings that involve shamans looking at the landscape. This was entitled, this is a Page, son of the jaguar, contemplating Arpoador Bay and beyond. It's a place in Brazil. And I think you see my devices there, the ambivalent transient light, the attempt to use a proscenium or a road or a bay or something to bring you into the, painting, and then see how far you can go from there. Carlos Dorothea Tucano, who I met in, I think, 1988 or 87. He's an activist, environmental activist. And here I have him seated in contemplative fashion, looking out at the De Freitas Bay Lagoon.
Where's that?
The Lagoa de Freitas. It's a lagoon in Rio de Janeiro.
In Rio, okay.
And then I opened up the body. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but the Kine designs are in that hole that are his. I think we're almost done, but these are landscapes on the left. I have a lot of mountains in because indigenous people usually have sacred places that are topographical. The Hunikin have a mountain called the Blue Mountain. On the right, God sees every bird that falls because he did it. The left, ascendant landscape. That's my ode to the vine, to the Nishipei, to the and on the right, the Blue Mountain of the Hunikin, which is their sacred place. Next. 1963, I was already experimenting, as I mentioned, with the architectural, the aerial, a kind of nod to what was happening at the time, also with the minimal pattern painting, a kiss in the hourglass of eternity. And then this last painting shown at Ryan Lee in October, version 2 of Blue Mountain for the Hunikin. Thank you for traveling with me this far. Nano Komfoya Fosia, Nano Confo Achianza, Ochiami George Akufo Eche, Carlos Dorotea Tucano, Page Sapain Kaminaluya Chingu, Page Charakin, Melanie Denise Dyer, my wife, my family, Ryan Lee, contemporary, Nina Johnson, Corrine Johnson of Kencalaba, and I'll call you bro.
Come here, bro. That's fine. It's like,
Bro
I'll take it.
Silverberg
It's an honor.
and Broadway Arts Management, One Taste. Yeah, thanks for coming. I hope that wasn't too long.
I wonder if anyone wants to ask anything. What do you think?
Ask me no questions, I'll tell you no lies.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Thank you for showing us your art. It was really beautiful, and I felt like I got a transmission of your journeys. And I thought the colors were really beautiful and interesting.
Mhm.
And when I've seen art that's based in ayahuasca, there's sometimes a lot of like earth tones. And there was a lot of like brights and like a lot of open space, a lot of white used. And I was wondering where your color choices and all of that came from.
Mhm. You know, something odd is that I somehow I think color is the last thing that it's not much of the experience. It's more like light. It's like a lot of light. I think that the palette is just like, you know, something personal. But the reason why it's so aqueous is because water is transitory. And like I can load the brush with a lot of linseed oil and put chalk in it and then let the colors run into each other, which is also part of the idea. It's mostly the space and the endlessness and there was one peyote experience I had when I was out in outer space somewhere and I was sitting on, I don't know, on another planet maybe, and I could see the earth, all right? And I was saying to myself, God, it's like just so comfortable up here. I hope anybody that thinks I'm missing down there isn't worried. I have no idea how I'm going to tell them I'm okay, but you know, so it's more like spatial kind of things. But the palette, I think, but I think that you can see from the early paintings that it's less opaque. It became much more transparent.
Thank you.
You've mentioned something about you see something, but you don't put it on painting. Why?
I try to evoke the feeling about it. Like Badia he's actually, a lot of his paintings actually have these hallucinations and these images that he sees. With me, I'm painting the light, the sense of light, the transitory nature of the light, the expansiveness, the emptiness that is full of everything. That's some weird shit. That's like a Sandy Koufax slider. That's like going down Broadway and it goes into a manhole.
we got double, so you go first. I knew that was gonna happen. Well, sorry, that's loud. You kind of alluded to it during your observations of some of the forms in one of the paintings you made. Well, I've had some light experiences with ayahuasca, so I have some comprehension of the forms you're exploring, but I guess it's a large question. But it sounds like there's some communal forms and shapes that everyone who transcends to this space.
Yeah, you got that
together.
experience with the, like,
There are like
you know,
recurring
those
forms and-
designs, those interlocking designs that they use.
Well, you named
To
it.
me, I keep using this phrase isotopic formulas. You know, like if you make a carbon isotope, right, of carbon, and then like carbon 16, there's just like one little you know, tangent but it's connected. It is carbon, but it's, you know, a different form of it. But that's like what we are. You know, you know.
The big fat oneness of it all.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I look across the street and there's a row of sycamore trees. Some are like this, some are like that, but they're all sycamore trees, right? And they're all, you know, connected, okay? So I think, but you know something? The Indians, they live in paradise, but they hate it. They think of reason, they take ayahuasca, they have this experience, and they dream up stuff to go and fight another village. And not only that, but they don't necessarily trust the shaman. You know, we know you traveled, but wait a minute, where did you go? How do we know you didn't go and visit the other village with those people that we don't like? It's interesting.
Thank you.
Am I on? How has, looking back at what your art was like prior to doing—
Oh, sorry.
Well, looking back at your art prior to doing psychedelics or plant, to what happened, how your art changed, do you see?
Yeah, well, that goes back to high school. I was very under the influence of Chaim Gross and Robert Gwathmey.
The architect.
Gwathmey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And
Postmodern.
some of the Harlem Renaissance painters, Palmer Hayden, Charles Alston. So I did like a lot of social realist themes, the figurative, you know. But even then, there was like a little touch of some kind of otherliness in it. You know, if you looked at it, it was more than just about the story.
When do you think you made the complete, like, I'm over that hump? I know this other space.
The change?
Yeah.
A kiss in the hourglass of eternity. Turn the beat around, turn it upside down.
Got to hear percussion.
Sorry, I was at the front. I wanted to ask, sorry, I'm over here. You spoke about almost like all the arts of like the last 300 years, I said, like being almost like a blueprint in your, I guess, in your psyche. And I just wondered, like, do you think taking ayahuasca and peyote made it easier for you to like just get out of the way and let that come through you? Like, was that part of what this journey has been for you, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely, it helps. But you know what? As a human being, I'm constantly struggling. It's not easy to follow the enlightenment that is offered to you, you know. I sometimes do stuff and say things that are not supposed to be said by someone who has seen the light that I've seen.
Like what?
You know? Yeah. You know, so
I mean, when you say you're not supposed to say things, is it because they're too earthbound or because they're too in the other direction? What is forbidden in terms of that commentary?
it has nothing to do with what people would think is like amoral or anything like that. It's got to do with being impatient with somebody who deserves time, or my ego getting in the way of something that is being said, and it's really not about me, and me getting mad about something that's being said that's not even about me. But I, you know, I mean, my mother, you know, went to church every Sunday. And she was the kind of person who got down on her knees and put her hands like this and prayed at night. My mother said, don't have anybody looking under my bed. Don't want nobody touching me that's not supposed to touch me. She told me, don't touch things, cars, women that you don't know or don't belong to you. If somebody hits you once and you don't leave, you've got a problem. Mind your business. Don't get into people's sexuality, etc., etc. So these things, but you know, I left the church and following these paths that these sacred people opened up for me. You know, I'm a certified pagan. You know, and I have to just constantly try to do better.
You were given the honor of becoming you did a ceremony in Ghana with an indigenous religion where you were made a chief.
Yeah. After being known to these people for a decade and a half or so, one night, 4 o'clock in the morning, the armed men showed up. You're now a slave of the people. And they carried me out. They put some herbs in my mouth. They said, I want to ask, no, it's 4 o'clock at night, in the morning. I said, I'm no longer myself now. I'm in an interregnum. And then they hid me someplace. And all the people in the town had to go around knocking on doors and trying to find me. And then they finally found me. They put me on their shoulders. They went to all the crossroads in the town and poured libations on the ground for the ancestors. Okay? And I'm going through this very quickly, of course. And then the culmination was sitting on the ground on a skin of a goat that had been sacrificed, and the blood poured on my leg onto the ground. So they had officially given me this sacrificial lamb to give to the ancestors. And then they took the herbs out of my mouth. And then I swore an oath to the elders, to the sub-chiefs, to the queen mother, to the chiefs, so forth and so on. That had an effect on me. I can have a really bad mouth. You know, I'm constantly trying to, you know, do the right thing and falling. But that's another experience, that just not saying anything at all. And it's not that people haven't been quiet for 12 hours, but the fact that that thing is in your mouth
Which is a bunch of herbs.
is a little bit different. There's something about the confinement of it that's not voluntary, that's sacred, and that you dare not, you know, take it out because you're being transformed to a person who's supposed to be wise enough to tell other people what to do and what not to do. But in their culture, they tell you, if you want to figure out whether what you're about to do is right or wrong, think of your family. So, so there's another thing to throw out to you.
Ancestral legacies.
Mm-hmm. Do those, and you know, it's interesting. We, my wife and I, we got married in a civil ceremony by the mayor of Leonia. But she said, that's not the real marriage. The real marriage was when Achiansa, that was the priest that you saw on the right, who was going into ecstasy, and that they were, because they get, you know, they can hurt themselves because they just start going all over the place. But he had a vision of us being married, and he called us to his shrine one day and started performing this ceremony and anointing us, and the next thing you know, he's putting these rings on our finger. And so that was, you know, so that's another thing, is that I have to think about when I not thinking in a positive way.
Thank you for your positivity.
Thank you, George. That was incredible, and I feel like getting to hear about your art and your journey enlightened my own understanding of life and experience. So I appreciate you being here tonight. And thank you all for coming to our second Altered States. We will be having more Altered States December 3rd and December 17th.
Definitely the 17th, probably with
Okay.
Dimitri Mugianis and Randy Palumbo talking
Yeah.
about creating a space.
Yeah, so
to-
Dimitri and Randy created the Cardia Healing Space in Soho that worked with ketamine journeys and is an incredible space. And so that will be December 17th, as Ira said. If you want to learn more about the One Taste Center and the Eros philosophy, you can come talk to myself or Karen there or Leah here or Matt or Courtney. We have books in Sophia, and then we have books in the back if you want to. Everything here is for sale. So incense, books, if you see anything you like, a few of us will be roaming around. Thank you again very much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Bob.
Another hand for George Nelson Preston.
Thank you. I like the approval.